Maybe I think we just make this a load of bullshit. Right, as you can see, I'm here with my friend. We're just going to chat about F1. Just
It's not
enjoy
me,
the
by the
background.
way.
This is not an
Someone
extremely
else.
good intro. I don't care. Why does it need to be sophisticated? We don't need it to be sophisticated. So we're just going to chat a load of shit about F1. Agreed, copy, understood. Let's get started, mate.
Yes. And this isn't a podcast. This is a rant,
No.
basically. Well, for the first part, it will be a rant.
I can't wait for the rant.
So, if we go back 11 years, I think it was 11. Yeah, it is 11 years.
Mathematics.
Back when
people.
Jack was a wee baby, watching
Wee
Formula One
baby.
with his
Did it
dad.
make me sound like... What? Sorry? No, wait. Let's pause this right now, fellow. Why are you making it sound like you're older than me, and also that I had a stable relationship with my dad? Those things have only happened in the last 2 minutes. So let's
Literally got off
not
the phone
start.
before we started recording this.
Right, no. Yes. 2012. Fantastic
2012.
F1 season.
Yeah, heartbreaking as a Fernando Alonso fan. And
No.
we might talk about that in another one, because me and Jack can never agree on who actually deserved the title more. But there was one man who is probably remembered for all the wrong reasons in that year, because he didn't really know how big his car was. He was kind of like the George Russell of today. He didn't really know how big his car was. And it's obviously Romain Grosjean, if you couldn't tell. Because,
Really?
I mean, to be honest, he was worse than Maldonado that year. And that's some feat. But,
Pastel.
but despite that, he probably should have won at least 3 races that year, had things gone his way. Which I think for...
You're stretching.
I'm not
And I've been
stretching,
holding,
no.
I've been holding this in since you brought the topic to me. I've been holding this in. You're stretching.
No, I'm not, I'm sitting down.
Part.
Because, no, I'll explain why I'm not stretching. I feel like I know why you think I am, but I'm not. So, he was inconsistent, but he had pace. I mean, races like Bahrain, Kota, Hungary, they showed that he had pace. He just couldn't do close wheel-to-wheel racing, which was a shame, because it really hurt him in the championship in the end, because he was miles behind his teammate, who got 3rd, I believe.
He did. Kimi Raikkonen in the 2012 season. He finished 3rd in the championship, and only mathematically was out of contention after the American Grand Prix, which was the penultimate race of the season.
So back when the good times only had one US Grand Prix at a good track.
And it was
well.
the only good US Grand Prix. Out of the 3 on the calendar right now, it's the only good US Grand Prix. But anyway, back to Gene Gross.
Yes. So, it's just a shame, because I think he's a bit overlooked. Like me as an IndyCar fan, I think his qualifying speed and his overall pace is a lot more evident in when he's racing in IndyCar than he is in Formula One. But yeah, 2012 I think was a bit of a waste, because the 3 races that I think he could have won were Bahrain, Valencia, and Canada. And I feel like Jack doesn't agree with Bahrain, but I'll explain the other 2 first, and then he can shout at me later. Because
Do you know what? I'm going to let you play this out in your nice, goody two-shoes, polite, northern manner. And then I'm going to come at you with some Essex bullshit.
so you admit yourself that it is
No, I'm
not
come
true
up with
what
some
you're
Essex
saying.
bullshit to absolutely demolish your argument.
Right, so Valencia 2012, providing that Vettel still had his alternator, decide not to alternate anymore. he probably would have won that race because he was on a better strategy compared to Alonso, and to be fair, he had the better car for that race. He probably would have won that had he also not broken down a little bit after Vettel, I think it was.
If I'm correct in saying, I believe Grosjean was catching a few tenths a lap, he was reeling in Alonso, and then we cut to the slow-mo of him exiting the bridge section? Yes, the bridge section of the circuit. I'm not sure if it was an alternator issue or gearbox issue, or was it a hydraulic? I don't know, but the point is his car failed him.
For the first time.
He was... Yeah, it was it the first time? It was the first time. Because he had failed his car up until that point.
And the team.
And the entire nation of France.
Yeah.
And the entire populace of the planet Earth.
So, and it's the same situation with Canada as well. After Hamilton and Grosjean had gone on to a 2-stop, was it a 2-stop that they went on to, or a 3-stop?
Yes. I will get to this in my round in a moment.
So they went on to a 2-stop, and Vettel and Alonso had stayed out on a 1-stop, and Hamilton was the car in front of Grosjean on the strategy. Grosjean was the car in second on that alternate strategy, and it ultimately won Hamilton the race. But I think Grosjean pitted after Hamilton, so he had fresher tyres to do the last stint of the race on. And if he'd have been given more laps at the end of that race, say if the race, just for some reason, it was just like 5 laps longer, he probably would have won that race because he was catching Hamilton faster than Hamilton was catching Vettel and Alonso. So he probably would have won that one as well. Had he, and then maybe he had pitted a little bit earlier compared to when he actually pitted, and he would have given himself more time. But that one, it's a little bit of a stretch because obviously it fully relies on the race just being longer for him to make the move. And then Bahrain,
which we're watching right now.
You're watching the race right now for the evidence.
It's a fucking shambles from the start. But carry on. I apologise for interrupting.
So I think that
Lotus... You see in the background there, Grosjean hit the barrier and just burst into flames. Sorry.
I think for Bahrain, the Lotus probably was the fastest race pace car. And it shows because they probably were on for a 1-2 had they both managed to catch Vettel. At least they were on for a double podium, which is what they got in the end, which was a good result. But before Raikkonen challenged Vettel, he was behind Grosjean, and they asked Grosjean to move aside so that Raikkonen could get after Vettel and attempt to win the race. And he had a few attempts, but he didn't work. But knowing Grosjean's saucy nature, he probably, if he was the car that was allowed to stay in front, and I believe, again, they both were catching Vettel, he probably would have sent it, at least, into turn 1, turn 4, something like that, and at least tried to make the overtake, because, obviously, Kimi was a bit more reserved, and they both had a bit of a break from Formula 1 coming into this season, but I feel like Grosjean would have naturally had a bit more fire in him to actually send it up the inside, which could have won him in the race, but it might not have won him the race. Who knows? But those are the 3 races that I can think of. I know Hungary had good pace. Kota was a good race, but he sort of just, it was decent, but it wasn't race winning. But yeah, apart from that, the rest of his season was quintessentially French.
Couldn't put it better myself. Now let's get my take on this. And my input into this thing, right? We'll start with Bahrain, and I have to say, I probably would agree. And I don't think you were expecting that, but let's be real. The Lotus Renault in 2012, around the Bahrain International Circuit in Sakhir, actually had the best race pace. If you go back and watch that race, and I wouldn't because it was pretty boring, but let's say hypothetically you were to sit there and watch the full race, the Lotuses had great pace. Raikkonen was fast, Grosjean was fast but French, Vettel was doing reasonably well in that Red Bull, considering it wasn't the best car. He literally got a grand slam at that race. So those details would make you think that the Red Bull was the best car. And I mean, for most of the sessions it was, but throughout the race, you could see that the Lotuses, they had a good strategy. They had great pace. The drivers didn't make any mistakes. I think the only thing that went wrong, well, you can't really say went wrong, but you feel like Raikkonen was too reserved. Had Grosjean been there, having only completed, he'd only completed maybe one race that season so far, and that was China, I believe, if I'm correct. I think I am. He would have been arguably more hungry to win that race. I mean, even before 2012, he'd had half a season in 2009. You feel like he would have just gone for it, because why not? Chances for a driver that's never won a race to go and win a race aren't always high for, you know, and also the team, they didn't have the best car. I mean, it was the best car on that day in terms of their race pace, but it wasn't the best car. Like, the Red Bull over the course of the season was probably better. The McLaren was probably the best car, but McLaren were being Ferrari, and Ferrari were being even more Ferrari. But, you know,
we're just having a bad car.
I thought putting Grosjean in that position that Kimi was in may have given him a chance. But on the other hand, I think that he easily could have ploughed into Vettel, and Raikkonen still could have won the race. Just as likely. But for the most part, I'm happy to agree. The next race that he could have won in Canada is where I take probably the most issue out of the three, but it's not really that much. Right. So Canada 2012 was a great race in terms of strategy. It was brilliant. Vettel got the pole, Hamilton lined up second, Alonso I don't think started third, but because of his one-stopping strategy put himself into contention. Hamilton hounded Vettel for the majority of the race. Hamilton switched to a two-stop halfway through the race, realising that he will have so much more grip to utilise in comparison to the one-stopping Alonso and Vettel. After he made the second stop, which was a slow stop by the way, probably cost him about, I don't know, a second and a half in the pit lane, because McLaren decided to have Ferrari pit stops all season. Put him a little bit further back down the road, and considering Grosjean was on the same strategy, put Grosjean a little bit closer. Lewis on those fresher tyres was about a second and a half, sometimes even 2 seconds a lap faster than the one-stopping Vettel and Alonso. It was glorious to see him hunt down those world champions. And he overtook them with pure class and ease in the best car.
But not really, because McLaren.
Yeah, this is all sounding very familiar. Grosjean and Perez were on a similar strategy. Perez managed to get third place in this race, but I feel like people forget that sometimes. Grosjean, in the end, after Hamilton had completely pretty much killed his tyres, and plus Grosjean had stopped a few laps later, after seeing what Lewis had done and McLaren were thinking, they had the fresher tyres. Grosjean mostly ran in clean air. He didn't really have to do a lot of passing and battling through that final stint. He had fresher tyres, put the pedal to the metal, and set himself after Hamilton ran out of laps to get there. There is a set amount of laps for a reason. We cannot extend the length of Grand Prix to do that. Simple as that.
To carry on the different winners.
He was not fast enough to catch. He didn't catch. Hamilton won the race. End of story. However, impressive drive. He didn't crash into anyone. He didn't bomb France. He didn't shove a baguette up anyone's arse. It was perfect. It was a great race. A well-deserved podium. And he followed it up in the next race with another great drive. Although we have to consider that Hamilton had a shit strategy and a shit pit stop again. Maldonado was fucking about. Vettel's
actually being worse than Grosjean that race.
Vettel's alternator decided not to alternate. Fernando Alonso decided to be Fernando Alonso.
But still had a Ferrari.
Nowhere. Raikkonen was too busy fighting someone else. He was nowhere. Right until the very end, where he was somewhere and he gained all the positions. Like, Grosjean, he had a good race in Valencia. He wouldn't have finished on the podium under normal circumstances, although there's no such thing as normal circumstances. Anyways, He was there, he was unlucky, but he was catching Fernando. And this is the thing, and it leads me on to another point about Fernando Alonso in the 2012 season, but Fernando got incredibly lucky that two capable race winners for that race were knocked out due to technical car difficulties. It was rough for him. It wasn't always set in stone that he could have won that race, but he was gaining. So there you go.
Yeah, the Lotus from before the 2014 regulation changes, the Lotus was actually one of the best race pace cars because it even crossed over to 2013.
In COTA 2013, Grosjean had a fantastic race. He outdone Mark Webber on actual pace and strategy. He actually held him off, but just couldn't catch Vettel because Vettel was being Vettel at his best. Like, Grosjean had to, and in Hungary, the Lotuses were great. They just weren't fast enough to catch Hamilton, who just cruised away to victory.
Nürburgring, they probably should have won there.
What, in 2012? I don't think so.
No, in 2013.
I'm not talking about Hamilton cruising to victory in 2013. I was talking about 2012, where they actually got a double podium. In 2013, they didn't get a double podium. I think they may have finished second and fourth, because Vettel actually got third there. But I'm not too sure. Grosjean, from time to time, and he had his tracks. Like, Bahrain was one of his tracks. COTA was one of his tracks. Like, he had good races from time to time.
So the tracks that had the most amount of space between the track and the barriers.
Exactly. If we look at Grosjean's first race for Lotus, like, he's out before the end of the first lap. If we look at his second race, the race after that in Malaysia, he fucks it into Michael Schumacher. Then I believe he fucks it into the gravel. Third race at China, he nearly fucks it with Maldonado, the same guy that he fucked it against in Australia. In Bahrain, solid race. In Spain, I can't remember what the fuck happened to him. In Monaco, in Monaco, I don't know if you remember this, he pincered Michael Schumacher, and I think he was one of the reasons why one of the Saubers went airborne in Monaco. How would you end up sending your car airborne in Monaco? Only I can do that in time trial, you stupid cunt.
But to be fair, that is Schumacher's fault because he shouldn't have even been there because he shouldn't have got the 5-place grid penalty in the race beforehand.
He did in Spain when he crashed into the back of the
So really, if you think about it, it's Michael Schumacher's fault.
And he wouldn't have been there in the first place had he not joined Mercedes, and Mercedes wouldn't have been there probably if Brawn hadn't done well, and Brawn wouldn't have been there without Ross Brawn. So this whole thing is Ross Brawn's fault. Throw him in jail.
I think we have to explain that if anyone actually watches this, that is a joke. We are not blaming those two. But and people will take it seriously if they actually do watch this. Which I don't think they will, but this is just nice to have a rant about Grosjean missing his opportunities.
This is a thing. Do we save the 2012 title battle for another day?
Yes, that deserves its own thing.
Because that video, I tell you what, I will be on smoke.
I think we need to do our proper research for that one as well.
Yes, no, I will be doing proper research. What other things could we rant about here?
Right, well, Grosjean was quintessentially French, right? But it wasn't as French as Alpine's decision to collab with celebrities on the 24% stake of the team. Which, if you haven't heard, in the 2023 season, we've jumped forward now 11 years. We've all grown up. We've all matured. Not really. But Alpine have sold themselves out to Ryan Reynolds and some other guy that I can't pronounce the name of. Neither of us can pronounce his name. Because we can't. We don't know who he is.
McDonald's L. Henry III.
That guy. And Ryan Reynolds. Two guys who I don't think I've ever seen at a Grand Prix before. Have all of a sudden bought a stake in Alpine, I feel like I've missed a race where they were there.
Well, I'm not sure about Mr. McDonald Duck, Ellen DeGeneres, Henry III, but I know about Mr. Deadpool. I believe he has been to at least 1 or 2 races in the last few years. So,
right. So he has a bit of an understanding.
We only care about Ryan Reynolds. We don't care about this other guy because we don't know who the fuck he is. I'm sure he's very famous, and I'm sure he's probably a nice guy, but I don't care.
Who cares?
And he's not Deadpool.
Yeah.
So, fuck him.
But the thing is that I don't know what do you might know more about this, but what do Alpine get from this apart from a load of money that they can't spend because of a cost cap?
Well, what they get is money, publicity for having a celebrity, and money. Like, look, I don't understand the point of this. This is like, the thing is, I can't even, like, I don't understand. Like, what is the point? Like, he's bought a stake. It would have been like if Lewis Hamilton had actually bought the Chelsea Football Club when they were being sold, when their owner, who was a Russian oligarch, was not allowed to run the club because he was Russian. And we all know about Russia. Too much vodka. Anyway, it would have been something like that. Like, it doesn't really make much sense to me. I don't really understand it, but you do you. I'll let you. I don't have much to say on this issue, but it's not really an issue. I just don't care for it. Like, I don't care that Ryan Reynolds. I care about. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy, but I don't care if he's bought a stake in an F1 team. It doesn't mean anything apart from money and publicity. I just don't care. And also, something I do care about right now, and I'm going to cut you off because this is a very serious point. What the actual fuck is Sergio Perez playing at the moment? He has been on the most shocking form in such a good car. Like, I've seen Sergio Perez have bad races. I remember Singapore 2018 comes to mind. He put Ocon in the wall. He swiped Sorokin. He had just a terrible race. Like, every driver has their moments. And Perez has had great moments this season. I think he controlled the race brilliantly in Saudi Arabia, even though he didn't have much to worry about with Max starting in 15th. He had a great race in Baku, even though Max was terrorised by the Milky Bar kid. Like, he's had a few good races, but after being slapped up in Miami from a guy who started in 9th place in the same car, he's not been the same. Like, in Monaco, he put it in the wall in qualifying in Q1, even though he would have made it through to Q2 and Q3 comfortably because he's in the best fucking car. Then he was stuck at the back of the grid. He had about 10 pit stops, and like, it was just absolutely embarrassing. Then we've got Imola, and it didn't happen, and that was his fault, clearly. Then we had the Spanish Grand Prix.
The tears flooded Imola after losing the Miami Grand Prix.
Yeah. Then we have the Spanish Grand Prix where he was knocked out in Q2 because he made a mistake. Similar to Australia, except he had a good recovery in Australia. I mean, going from P11 to P4 is a good result, 12 points, not bad. But when you've been slapped up by a slower car that has then finished on the podium in front of you and you weren't able to catch them in a car that is absolutely incredible and is just levels above every other car, questions start to rise. Like, your teammate, regardless how good he is, was just in a league of his own. He has led every lap he has raced in a Grand Prix since he overtook Sergio Perez in Miami. Not once has he not been P1 since then, in a race, that is.
And that is quite sad.
That is depressing. That we're not even being treated to a good few race battles. Like, let's be real, we all sort of thought at the start of the season, even before the Bahrain Grand Prix, even before qualifying, we knew and we had a good feeling that Max Verstappen was going to be a triple world champion, rounding off an amazing hat-trick of championships. We all saw it coming.
And this would be the first normal one.
Exactly. We weren't expecting a massive title challenge. But I would like to expect some consistent battles, pushing Verstappen, fighting for wins. And I mean, we kind of got that in the races that Perez won, but you kind of feel like they are circumstantial because Verstappen had been shagged in both those race weekends. And in the race weekends where Perez had issues, he was nowhere near Max. So it's just embarrassing. And we haven't even gotten on to Canada yet. He was outdone by the Ferraris after being knocked out in Q2 again. He finished P6 behind his teammate, behind Sigma Alonso, behind Goat Milton, behind Charles Leclerc, and behind Mr. Smooth. Like, you're in the best car. I mean, the Red Bull wasn't great that day, but let's be real. P6 in that Red Bull is just not good enough. And actually, the only reason he finished as high as 6th is because Russell decided to be a complete and utter pleb and fuck his car. Otherwise, he probably would have been running it in P4. Which means Perez would have been 7th. 6 points. I mean, he got 8 points from that weekend. That is not good enough when you're in a car like that. This is equivalent to 2020 Valtteri Bottas after the first couple of races where he was nowhere. This is like Monza 2020, where he just went completely backwards and then tried to come up with all these reasons. Oh, I got a puncher. No, you just had a shit start. It's just embarrassing. And I like Checo, but it's a fucking travesty that car is not even being pushed to its limits, challenging one of the greatest talents to have ever entered the fucking sport. Put Norris in the car. Put Alonso in the car. Put someone else in the car. Or step up your fucking game. End of discussion.
It's annoying because after Azerbaijan, we were all thinking, okay, well, 2 for 2 here between the Red Bulls. I mean, that could be interesting. And as we've clearly seen over the past few races,
and now it's 2
Sergio Perez has sort of lost his street circuit status. He hasn't performed at all.
I'm going to have to cut you off again, right? This street circuit, was it King of the Streets?
Merchant.
Is that what they called him? He's a street circuit merchant, is what we were calling him. But what is the nickname he got? Was it King of the Streets?
Probably. Some stupid
I think it was.
Instagram
Whatever
post.
It was, the street circuit merchant, it was bullshit. Right, let's be right. He's had a few good races, right? I mean, there was a podium in Canada, as I mentioned, back in 2012. He had a podium in Azerbaijan and Monaco in 2016. He had a podium in Baku 2018. Like, okay, fair enough. Then he wins in Baku 2021, even though he probably he wouldn't have won the race had it not been for Max's tyres going bang bang and Lewis taking the escape road and the magic route out of the town. Let's be real. Then he wins. Well, then he gets his first pole position at Jeddah 2022 and gets shagged by the safety car. Then he wins in Monaco because he rigged the system in qualifying and Ferrari were being Ferrari. Then in Singapore, he actually drove a good race. And then Christian Horner heralded it as one of the greatest races he's ever driven, even though that race literally came a year prior in Bahrain. Well, sorry, Sakir, outer. Like, he's not a street circuit, he's a street circuit merchant. He's not king of the streets. Vettel, Senna, they are drivers that can be considered king of the streets. There are probably more drivers, let's be real. But just because you win and get a few podiums at a couple of street circuits and you're only good at winning street circuits, apparently, it doesn't make you a good driver or king of the streets. Like, it's bullshit. Don't want to hear it. Vettel has... Wait, let me just calculate this correctly. So, Checo has 5 Grand Prix wins and a sprint race win. We're not counting sprint races here. So he won Jeddah once, Singapore once, Monaco once, and Baku once. Twice, even. 5 street circuit wins. Vettel has the same amount of wins at one fucking circuit at Singapore, which is a street circuit. King of the streets, my arse. Not trying to hear it. Continue.
Can I also point out as well that when you said about Monaco 2022, about how he rigged the system, I love the irony that he didn't even have to do that himself because Alonso crashed anyways.
I know.
I don't know if that was.
But
I don't know if he crashed after the red flag or the yellow flag was shown and that put him off.
he crashed
Or if he just
when
did it
the
on
yellow flag
on his
was,
own.
No, he crashed when the yellow flag was shown. So that was interesting.
But yeah,
he just rigged the system.
I mean, Alonso was pushing, so he could have crashed anywhere else, even if it was because of the yellow flag. Like, Perez didn't even need to do that. But the irony that he had to rig a street circuit win, and he didn't even need to do it himself. He could have had someone else do it. And it's like, people say that he's a street circuit merchant, but his best races have come on permanent tracks. Like Monza 2012, Sakir 2020.
Malaysia 2012. As you mentioned, Sakir 2020, Bahrain 2021. It was a great race. Like, I'm not trying to hear it about street circuit merchant. Well, he is a street circuit merchant, but he's not king of the streets. Like, he's a really good driver, but he's not championship winning car material. He's a guy that should be consistently on the podium and in a decent team that is able to challenge for podiums and the occasional race win. Like, he's clearly capable. He's driven some very good races.
That's what Red Bull signed him for. But at the moment, he can't even fulfill half of that, of getting consistent podiums.
He has not been on the podium since Miami. You are in a rocket ship of a car.
Ocon's had a podium before he's had another one.
In the time since Perez has last been on the podium, Ocon has had a podium. Lewis Hamilton has had 2 podiums back to back. Alonso had a shit race and then bounced back to be incredible in Canada. Verstappen has pretty much doubled his lead in the championship. Maybe even tripled it. Russell has decided to terrorise himself now because he's terrorised too many other drivers. And Ferrari have actually been decent with their strategies.
Well, for one race. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. It was one race.
I mean, they went from having a shocker in Spain.
Well, they didn't really know what they were doing.
No, but it's alright though, because Carlos Sainz has pace in hand.
Clearly.
Oh, I still cannot get over the fact that he said that. He's like, okay, I've got pace in hand, I'm just going to wait. Then he gets shagged by the 2 Mercedes. And he falls back down the grid. That pace, I'm still waiting weeks later to see this pace in hand. I haven't seen it. Are we going to see it at Austria where Ferrari might be saucy? Are Aston Martin going to have a great car? Will Sergio Perez pull his finger out of his fucking arsehole and perform well? Or will Max Verstappen cruise home to win his 42nd Grand Prix, eclipsing Ayrton Senna's win tally, and set his sights on then winning the British Grand Prix a week later? Who knows?
The future us knows. And we'll have to come back to that.
We will.
Right. So, we've had 2 topics about me. Well, 2 topics that I wanted to. What did you want to talk about, Jack? Because I know you've made some notes.
Did you want to? Well, I mean, I thought I brought up Sergio Perez, but.
Well, you did, yeah, but I brought up 2. You brought up 1.
Okay, so as I've already mentioned it, I want to talk about the F1 calendar and what the fuck F1 is playing at.
This is going to be the same as that TikTok video where you had a rant about Baku.
Mate, we are getting to Baku, don't you worry, my son. The great tracks. We've got Silverstone, fantastic historical track, provides great racing the vast majority of the time. If you look back at maybe the last 10 years, 7 races, pretty good, sometimes even bangers. The odd, race here and there that are just sort of like, they're alright, but, good. The same with Interlagos, Monza, Spa. All those Spa's races aren't particularly exciting. It's a great track. Then you've got tracks that probably go underappreciated, like Kota, Hungary, Bahrain. Fantastic facilities, great tracks, provide interesting races. Not everyone's cup of tea, maybe a bit of strategy games here and there, maybe it's a bit of mind game, but like good tracks. Then we have the shitters. The tracks I abhor. Singapore, right? I know everyone quite enjoys a race around there, held under the lights. It's an interesting, fascinating street circuit, and I know because we haven't seen the new layout yet in action, it's hard to judge, right? However, the races that we've had round there, apart from maybe one or two, they're just shit. Like, it's awful. Like, a couple of overtakes here and there, a lunge after having some DRS, a send on the Anderson Bridge, or a couple of crashes. That's all that makes it interesting. And speaking of crashes and a few DRS overtakes that make it interesting, we're going to talk about Azerbaijan now. I don't get the appeal. It's a bad Formula One. It's shit. It is so bad. It's a big fuck off straight, which I mean looks fucking fantastic. Just going at top, just boom, looks great. Apart from the run to turn one, the track is dead. Right, so let's run through the track. Short run from the start finish line. Short run to turn one, braking 90-degree left-hander. Can go side by side, maybe one, like you're two abreast. You know, nice wheel to wheels battles. Maybe an odd switchback. Turn two comes up quite quickly after turn one. 90-degree left-hander down the next straight. You know, you got a bit bumpy and all that sort of shit. 90-degree left-hander for turn three. 90-degree right-hander for turn 4, 90-degree left-hander for turn 5, and 90-degree corner for turn 6, leading to the right. So far, the track appears to be made out of a bunch of rectangles. Now, I'm not saying that all 90-degree corners are bad. Like I'm not saying that. But let's be real. Apart from the DRS, and because of how narrow the track is, and how it narrows after turn 3, like it goes from being a decent width, and obviously it's because of the city, and like the city of Azerbaijan it's beautiful, it looks great, but for a race circuit, after the first couple of corners, it's dead. Nothing you can do in the middle sector apart from crash it into the wall or overtake someone who crashes it into the wall. Then you've got the castle section, which is as tight as my arsehole. Then you've got the run to turn 15, which is entertaining if someone goes down the escape road or fucks it into the wall. Then you've got basically the last break in the center of the circuit, which is not an overtaking opportunity, which leads onto a run to turn 1, which is just flat out, even though there's some left and right kinks. And then it's just shit. And two chaotic races. Let's be real. There was one chaotic race in 2017 that everyone thinks, oh, it's one of the best races ever. No, it's not. Shut up, dickheads. It's just chaotic. It's not good racing. 2018 had better racing and ended in chaos. That one is the only one I think is truly a good race. 2016, 2019, 2021, 2022, and 2023, all of them races are fucking dreadful. Like, they're so bad. they're too bad. 2016, Rosberg won the race and a few people had some radio shenanigans going on. Who gives a fuck? 2019, Leclerc crashes in the wall in qualifying and Bottas wins the race. Who gives a fuck? 2021, Verstappen tyre blows out, Leclerc had a shot pole, Hamilton took the magic route, Perez won the race. Who actually cares? 2022, Max wins by 20 seconds. Red Bull told their drivers not to fight, Ferrari fucked themselves out of the race with both cars, Lewis Hamilton became a vegetable, and Russell got a podium. Don't care. 2023, Leclerc, pole in the race, pole in the sprint, Russell decides to be a terrorist, Max calls Russell a dickhead, Max gets screwed in the main race with a strategy, Perez wins the race under pressure from Verstappen, and Alonso nearly gets Leclerc for third. Don't care. That is the race rundown for 4 races at a Grand Prix, done in about 120 seconds. No one cares. It's shit. End of. Go on, go on. Appeal to me that Baku is a really good circuit and deserves to be on the F1 calendar, apart from financial investments. Like, go.
Right, so the first sector, I get where you're coming from with the 90-degree corners, but for me, and if you actually pay attention to the track, the first sector, every single 90-degree corner is actually a little bit different in how you have to approach it, because turn one's quite rounded on the apex. It's actually quite a bit more flowing than the rest of them, which actually makes it interesting because it kind of keeps the cars side by side into turn 2, which kind of promotes a bit of DRS chicken and also some racing into probably the tightest 90-degree corner on the track, apart from turn 15, but that's not really 90 degrees. It's a little bit more. And then turn 3 is like, to be honest, if turn 1 didn't have the massive straight leading up to it, turn 1 probably won't be as good of an overtaking opportunity as turn 3, because it's not as sharp as turn 2, but it's pretty good, and it's quite bumpy as well, which makes it quite good. And then for turn 4, it's quite awkward, and you have to brake earlier than what you think you do. This is from gaming experience as well. This isn't from real life. I don't do much F1ing myself. But yeah, turn 4's awkward, and you have to brake earlier than it. And to be honest, the whole first sector, you can still get battles. I mean, 2021 is a good example of how you can get battles all the way around the first 4 corners. Even the first 6 corners, because we had people going around the outside in the chicane, cutting back for the inside, as we saw with Raikkonen and Bottas. You know, that chicane, if you're close enough, it does work for overtaking. And even if the overtakes aren't done, you've seen it from Tsunoda, you've seen it from Raikkonen, they can get it done on the brakes into turn 7, which is like the proper hairpin on the track. Turn 8 is a scenic route, but I like it because it's a castle section, and yeah, the whole track looks pretty nice. It's actually in a nice location. And then the run to turn 15 is pretty fun. I like the kinks. Going into a downhill braking zone makes it very hard. Really hard. The last corner is probably the most basic corner because it doesn't really have anything about it. You know, it's got loads of runoff and it doesn't really do much. And then the last couple of kinks, how we've not had a massive crash through those kinks yet, I don't know, because that is dangerous, but I like it. And that's my case for Baku.
It's in a very nice location. The city of Baku looks great. Have you seen the pictures where there's no F1 there? The roads are so wide. There's like 4 or 5 lanes of traffic. Like, it is a beautiful place. But for an F1 race, now, I understand the appeal for some street circuits. It looks great. And actually, when you drive around Baku, especially in a game, because obviously, like yourself, I don't do a lot of F1ing either. When you watch Leclerc's pole lap from this season, it looks fantastic to drive around. Don't get me wrong. One car over a couple of flying laps or whatever, it looks great. For actual racing, though, this is what for racing, it is more often than not, it's poor. Now, you can make cases for, well, actually, there are a few good overtaking opportunities, like into turn 1 and turn 3, because of the DRS and the long as fuck straights. Or if you're feeling brave and you're going side by side through the first sector, cool. But that can't be the basic requirements for a Formula 1 race. Like, Hungary, as I've mentioned before, being an underrated circuit, you've only got that one long straight on the pit straight where you're really going to have a lot of slipstreaming and whatnot, DRS and just sending it. Then into like all the rest of the corners, it's just short runs, a DRS on the run to turn 2, you might go around the outside and whatnot. But the thing is with Hungary, it is a brilliant track for a strategy game, and the corners are much nicer, the track is just flowing, it's nice, Baku is very stop start, it's just it's poor. Now, if you like it, that's fine, but I do not want to hear people just going, "Oh, Baku's, it's so good. It really deserves to be on the F1 calendar. Look at the good races we've had. We've had one race that was good for the theatrics and the entertainment, and we had one actual good race. 2018 is the only good Grand Prix at Azerbaijan with good racing." And I don't want to hear, well, in 2017, Ricardo pulled a three-car overtake. He was in a Red Bull, he overtook two Williams and a Renault. I'm not impressed. Like, it's cool. When you do a three-car dive bomb, that's pretty cool. When you're doing it as one of the most talented drivers on the grid against a guy that was past his best, a billionaire's son, and the German that struggles to get on a podium, I'm not impressed when you're... I'm just not.
When you watch Verstappen start at 2021 Mexico, that's when you're impressed.
I'm impressed by hard, fair, exhilarating,
equal machinery overtakes.
Racing. I want to see. No, I want to see cars absolutely being pushed to their limit at circuits that are incredible. I want to see tracks like Malaysia and Turkey and the Nürburgring and Hockenheim. Now, all of those circuits have their problems, yes. I mean, Malaysia, it only really has one problem, and that's the fact that it's not on the calendar. Like, I want to see some of the best Grand Prix on the calendar. Now, on the other hand, I do want to see the rest of the world included. So that having a track like in Baku, it's a different part of the world. We'd never been there before, 2016. Cool. But it's time for a little revamp. And speaking of shit circuits, we have to move on to one of the worst Grand Prix that I've ever had the pleasure of watching. And that's the Miami Grand Prix. Apart from money, Miami literally brings nothing but pain, misery, and making me want to rip my own ears out of my head.
I mean, it literally ripped off your baby, Jack. It ripped off the first three corners of Interlagos and made them somehow boring.
They made them smaller, boring, and just general, what the actual fuck are you playing at? Like, it's a classic Tilke design where it's turn one. If it was just a hairpin, cool. But no, you take a hairpin right, followed by a kink left, followed by a curved right. Turn one. It's Bahrain mixed with Interlagos, mixed together in a blender, and then you add a bunch of shit on top of it. It's just horrible. It's Zandvoort curbs and Bahrain Interlagos. It just doesn't work. Like, there are things that do work. When you copy and get it right, it's amazing. America have already copied other F1 circuits before, and it's a brilliant facility in Texas. Circuit of the Americas. It ripped off Maggots and Beckett's and a flowy section of Suzuka. Also ripped off Turn 8 in Turkey, did it in reverse. And the track is just fantastic. Elevation changes, long straights, hairpins, flowing parts of the... Like, it's a fantastic track. One of the best American circuits they've had. It's up there for me with Indianapolis. Indianapolis, another fantastic circuit. Miami, I think the only good part of the circuit at Miami is the long straight that then leads into the hairpin for the final part of the lap. Literally, before you enter the two sweepy things to finish off the lap. Because, of course, Miami needed more sweepy things after the first and second sector. It's just
to
terrible.
Compensate.
Yeah, because there weren't enough sweepy things on the second straight. I just don't, I can't. My brain, when I hear Miami Grand Prix, Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Singapore Grand Prix, I'm just dreading what I'm gonna see. Like, I can't. My brain cannot cope with those Grand Prix.
And when you think about how many
give me
good,
some tasty races,
how many good American tracks there are, that we could go to instead of these street circuits.
cash is
Like
king.
there would be so many American Formula One fans who would prefer to go to tracks that they've heard about in their childhood rather than these new ones that cost an arm and one of your children to afford a ticket for.
I mean, the Miami Grand Prix tickets, do you remember last year they were going for, was it like £28,000? What a
Dollars,
fuck it
not
was,
pounds.
dollars. What a fucking joke. Like, for example, to get, you don't, not even for premium like just for your standard tickets at a track like, I don't know, Bahrain or Silverstone or Spa, they a few £100. Like, I mean, ticket prices are going up always because F1 is increasing its popularity. But 20,000 tickets to basically go watch a parade of the drivers, listen to some shit music, and then watch the cars have to go around in single file because the track is shit. I mean, well, yeah, I mean, Hamilton and Russell in 2022. Quite interesting. It's a shame we didn't see it live because the camera work is shoddy. I mean, 2023, watching Verstappen carve his way through the field, pretty cool. Like, the odd overtake here and there, but the track is awful. Like, it just infuriates me. Like, I'm worried for Las Vegas because, I mean, I just don't know what I'm looking for. Like, that first sector is just... Oh, I can't. I just can't. But cash is king. The reason that circuits like Saudi Arabia, Miami, Vegas, Qatar, Abu Dhabi are all on the calendar is mainly because of money. And let me be clear about something, right? Qatar and Saudi Arabia, two very different circuits. Qatar, a very wide, traditional circuit, not usually used for F1, it's usually used for MotoGP. But it's a really good circuit. Allows for some interesting racing. Saudi Arabia, a tight, twisty, a lot of sweepy things, however it's done right. It's incredibly fast. It's enjoyable, it provides great racing. If we look at all the three races we've had there, 2023 was probably the worst of the three. However, there was some really interesting moments, like watching the two watching Max Verstappen storm through the field was interesting. Watching what the Ferraris and the Mercedes and the Aston Martins were going to do was interesting. Watching the battles up and down the field was quite enjoyable. 2022, pretty much the same. 2021 is given more of an entertainment rep because Hamilton and Verstappen were beating the absolute pulp out of each other. But the racing
that was just
elsewhere
chaos,
was good.
that race.
Race was chaos, but it was also good.
Yeah.
Like, it is a good balance between Baku 2017 and 18. There was good racing, but also entertainment. Baku could learn a thing or two. But they are good races. I don't want to see races just in the most popular... Like, I'd hate to see a British Grand Prix held in London or Manchester, just through the city. It would just... Like, I'm not interested. Unless they build a track that is great for racing. Like, keep it at Silverstone. We've got a fantastic facility there. Just keep it there. Or if, I don't know, for example, Italy. I mean, they have some great venues. They've got Monza, they've got Imola, they've got Mugello. All three tracks appeared in 2020 and they were great most of the time. Not particularly memorable for Imola or even Mugello that much, apart from a few incidents. But overall, some good facilities. I'd hate to just see a street circuit in Milan or Rome. Boring. Don't care.
Formula E is quaking in their boots right now.
Formula E is different. And we all know it.
Because they don't care about their fans saying, can we have more permanent tracks, please?
No, of course they don't.
And that might even be a rant in another episode of whatever this is going to be called, because we haven't made a name for it yet.
We haven't actually got a name for this yet. But enjoy the rant. This is going to be posted on YouTube and edited down for TikTok. Enjoy.
Mine won't be because I'm lazy, unless if Jack wants to do it for me.
Not for you. It's going to be done. It's going to be done on my thing, and if Finn wants it, will be posted on his thing because fuck it, why not? the
But I
nerve.
will say now, Jack, we are coming up to an hour of recording. So, and because
You've been recording. I'm
have been,
streaming all
yes.
of this. So, I don't know why you...
But I can only save an hour of recording, and we've got
That's fine. I will
3.5 minutes.
I'm gonna be streaming the rest, so it's fine. Of the rest of what we got. Any other little tidbits that we could talk about now? Now we've spoken about the circuit. We'll get more onto circuits another time too, because rather than a negative note, I'd like to have some positives too, like why certain tracks. And we might even, in a future video, I think we should maybe even do this the very next time we do a thing, do our season calendar, how many races we want, where we'd want them, and for future seasons, if we'd have any alternating tracks. I think that's a great idea, rather positive. Then we can also do your ideas on that. We can do your championship thing, and your point scoring
I'll have
system.
to do
Look
some
forward
more
to
of
that.
those.
That will be tasty.
But I think for now,
world champions, driver moves. But for now, as you're about to say, it is probably time to end what the actual fuck is this thing, because we don't actually know what it's called yet.
no, we don't know what it is. I don't think it's a podcast. It doesn't really class as a podcast.
This is not going to be a
'Cause
podcast.
we've got
This
footage.
is just going to be just chats about F1. It's not like, I guess it could kind of be considered a podcast because you sat there talking about F1. But I mean, if you're posting videos,
But I was going to watch this
just
anyways.
audio.
So this is just me and Jack letting our thoughts out
Yeah, exactly.
to each other, really, and pretending that there's someone else listening.
I mean, if I post it on TikTok and maybe get some publicity and people are interested and I just link the full thing, then maybe it will gather some interest, but I don't know. But I have to say, I've rather enjoyed letting off steam about Baguette Man, Circuit Demons,
And
Checo being a fucking spastic,
that great.
and I'm looking forward for the future, talking about the 2012 season, talking about world championships on old point systems. I look forward to customizing our own F1 calendars. I even look forward to talking about future F1 news and game news.
And the
That will be
2012
exciting.
championship in depth. That will be the in-depth championship that we talk about.
Yes.
And where this
will-
will probably end after a couple of episodes because me and Jack will fall out and not want to talk to each other because we can't agree.
Because we have diametrically opposing views in some races. I think some races will agree, but then other races I will want to rip his fucking tongue out of his throat. He'll want to jab me in the eyes and make me blind. I will then boot his ass to Mars, and then he will call me a nit. But anyway, what else would be? What we'll do is after we end this, we'll talk about other things we can list. I'll even list things that we can put in each individual episode.
Yeah, we've got to plan it, and we've also got to plan out our special guests.
Yes. Well, there will be special guests.
Hopefully, if they want to.
Maybe.
We haven't asked them yet. They don't know that
When
we've
I say
done this
special
yet.
guest, I mean
They think we're
special as
sad.
in. And when I say special guest, I mean autistic or retarded. I don't mean special guest as mean he's a privilege to be here or he's like a celebrity. It's going to be one of our mates who is autistic, like this Red Bull driver that's just been taken out. But anyway, thank you for watching.
Or listening,
This
or
is
however
definitely
you
not gonna get taken
consume
down.
our
There is someone
rubbish.
watching the stream, so I wonder who. I bet I know who this is.
I
But
don't
anyway,
think that's
thank you for
me.
watching. No, it's not you. Is it you?
No, it's not.
Okay. If it's Bjorn, he's just listened to us rant about so much shit. But I don't think it is. Anyway, thank you for watching, or listening, or wanking, or whatever you've been doing. And we'll see you next time.
I really don't think they've been doing that.
Oh, mate. Believe me, the things the freaks do on the... Anyway, goodbye!
Goodbye, everyone.